we hear this kind of a lot. And I know from my own community here, and I know from talking to other medical professionals, is doing like care of a doctor or a nurse or nurse midwife during pregnancy, trying to like, they're going to do home birth center birth, but they're still going getting like ultrasounds or getting maybe their testing, like the important testing stuff done. I know it doesn't happen all the time, but I know a lot more places would like to kind of do it. So then people are more like, we know who you are. So if you need anything, you can come. If you have any concerns, you come see me. So I know that's kind of like a thing that would be a huge bridge between the two worlds. Do you ever see that very often, or would that be beneficial for that to be something that's kind of just more universal that we should be doing in America?
I think you have to think of it from the point of view of a lot of obstetricians don't like to give the okay to something that they don't believe in. So they kind of feel like if you're going to do concurrent care and get all the benefit from me, but then not deliver with me, number one, it's a little hard for me to plan. Like if I think you're going to deliver with a midwife at home, do I then look at my schedule and go, that's a time that I should sit around waiting in case you have a problem? I mean, I would do concurrent care if the patient doesn't expect me to deliver them. You know what I would, because I think it's better that they get good care than no care. So if they're going to a home midwife and they're not getting a glucose test and they're not getting their platelets checked or anything like that, that's worse for them. But for me, I would not promise them that they could then call me when something goes wrong at their home delivery, because how can I live my life that way? If I have a bunch of patients like that, it's bad enough that I have to be around when my own patients are supposed to deliver. Not bad enough, but you know what I mean? I can't go anywhere. I can't leave town when I have patients that have to deliver. So I'm not going to potentially wait for patients. You know, if I take care of them through their pregnancy and they do all the right things and are honest with me that they're going to try for a home birth, they need to know that if that goes bad and they go to the hospital, it's whoever's on call at the hospital. It's not me sending in like I'm going to show up and take care. And that would be okay with me. Although I doubt patients would like that, because if they have some relationship with me, they would expect me to show up. But if they expect me to show up, then I have to expect them to show up. So I could see how that could be done. But what happens more often, which is like what happened in a case that I told you guys about last time, patients come in and see an obstetrician and not tell them that they're going to deliver at home. So they get the best care that they can get, and then they try to get the delivery that they want. And then the doctor's kind of left in the dark about like, hey, wait a second, she would be 44 weeks by now. We haven't seen this patient, come in, and something happened where she either delivered at home or had an emergency and went somewhere else. That's not fair to doctors either.
That would be more like a maternal fetal medicine kind of relationship where the MFM takes care of the pregnancy, the OB delivers. It would be the OB takes care of the pregnancy, midwife delivers.
Or, but at the same token, if I don't think they're a good candidate for home delivery, I would be telling them every time I see them that here's what risk out for a home delivery. And if they're on that list, I would continue, primips are risk out. They're not supposed to deliver at home if it's their first baby. And then I take care of so many high-risk patients that it would be rare that I'd have somebody that I'd go, I think you might be a good candidate, even though there's still risk and you're still far from the hospital if something happens. Because look at that other one that I delivered, that she had a totally normal pregnancy and delivery, and then the baby needed complete resuscitation. That happens at home. You think your home midwife is skilled in ACLS or, neonatal resuscitation enough to keep your baby alive? No. So you have to accept that risk. And I do believe that if anybody who wanted to deliver at home had to sign a paper that says, I am taking the responsibility that if something goes wrong, I know my baby could be damaged or die, and so could I. If they had to sign that, that's the truth. That's not fear-mongering. That is truthful information that if you deliver at home and you're too far from the hospital to get something that you need right away, these things could happen. But I think that part gets completely washed out. Nobody even mentions that. But, if somebody's willing to sign that, just like if they're willing to sign, I don't want to have a mammogram because I don't want to know if I have breast cancer. If I give them a paper that says, I understand that by not having a mammogram, I know I might have breast cancer and never learn about it, sign. Who am I to say you have to have it? You're taking responsibility. But I can tell you one thing, when I put that paper in front of people, a lot of them go, you know what? I think I'll have my mammogram. because they don't want that responsibility and they didn't think of it in those terms. So I do think the informed thing is so important that I'm here to give you information. You have to reflect back to me that you received the information, you understand, you're signing, then you make your decisions. People should do that in every case.
Yeah, I actually love the informed, like the informed consent is the hugest thing that I think is the worst misinformation about out of hospital birth. Like people don't know the reality of death or injury or, lifelong suffering. Like you really just don't know. And that's the thing of why they don't want you to go see a doctor or go to the hospital or go see, because normally they're going to tell you it's risky. These are your risk. And they say it's fear mongering, but it's actually not. That is what it is. When you go to the hospital, here's your good, here's your bad, here's your good, here's your bad. And a midwife will never tell you the good or the bad. It's always good, 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 good at home.
It's always good.
But the hospital's bad, 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 bad here.
It's
And
just
so
an
that's
acknowledgement of risk. That's all. You
Yeah,
acknowledge that
exactly.
what you're doing contains XYZ risk. And I take responsibility for that. If you don't want to take any responsibility for that, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. And I wish I had that, because I think if there was something like that, you would go through, because you have to go through, like I had a contract and all that stuff. If I would seen that, I would have been like, what is this? But I was just not aware of anything. And that's how it is. Like when I talk to all the other people that's lost babies, they just didn't know the risk, just like anybody, like they really didn't know. So the biggest thing is here, we try to license our midwives. You guys are licensed over there, but we're not. And they didn't want, what they wanted to do here was, our state was like, okay, to license you here, and it was by choice. They were going to do by choice. They said every midwife has to have an informed consent paper that everyone has to sign.
Which is the
saying, hey,
minimum, which is the
yeah,
bare minimum.
it's like nothing. And it was like very simple too, saying, hey, I am a licensed midwife, or hey, I'm not a licensed midwife. This is what type of midwife I am. I am a CPM. I'm a lay midwife. I'm a nurse. Like literally laying it out of what type of midwife they are. And also saying, I have no affiliation with the hospital, or so I'm not going to literally have your home, hey, it's stuff's going wrong, and then walk you in and be able to go with you holding your hand. You need to be aware of that. And the midwives immediately were like, nope, not happening. We're not doing it. And they totally pushed the bill down over that one piece of paper that I believe was like that. I do think it came from our medical society here in town, because they were like, we need to have informed consent. And the senators and everybody was on board with, yes, it's a simple, easy paper that people are signing, and things go the right way. But no, the midwives totally pushed against it. And then they say, oh, but hospitals and doctors don't want it, they're so mean to us or whatever. But it's like, but you don't even want to tell people, you don't want to give them informed consent. Like you don't even.
I wish I could remember which state it was in, but there was a midwife who I think she was completely lost her license. And one of the things they found is that she took on patients, but one of the things they dinged her for was the fact that she had patients sign informed consents either late in their pregnancy, well after she had started their care, because it's supposed to be, you begin care, you get that informed consent. I believe at one case she had the patient, I think the baby may have died. She had the patient sign the informed consent after she had given birth to the baby. It was like, so just that little piece of simple paperwork, they managed to build a case among other things she did. And it was like, no, absolutely push for that informed consent. 100%. It's just a piece of paper. It's one record. It doesn't impact their practice. I mean, you're not telling them how to practice. You're just saying you need to tell your patient this minimal amount of information.
Which is a basic tenet of any kind of medical care.
And I think that's also where we have this fear of, you go to the hospital, because if you did have a midwife your whole pregnancy, she's given you no information. She's given you no evidence. She's giving you no risk benefit. There's no nothing there. There's no conversation. She's just been your friend hanging out with you. So when you do transfer, it's very scary, because you do have, I remember when I went in, they were like, okay, we have to get consent to take care of you. We can't touch you without your
Right.
consent.
Right.
And that right there is like scary, because you've had somebody that's just been doing whatever the heck they were doing. You know what I mean? So it's like,
You
it's
didn't
a
have to
whole
sign
nother world.
anything.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything. You can just, there they are. They're there, and when you go there, it's like, one big thing was, to me, it's kind of funny, just because I went in and I was like, do whatever you don't need my consent. Like, just do whatever you got to do. Like, and it was just kind of one of those where I was like, just do what you got to do. But it's interesting, because I have seen, and I've heard of people where it's like, they go in and a doctor's trying to be like, we need to do a C-section. And it's like, people say, oh, they forced me into a C-section. And I'm like, sadly, unfortunately, unless you pass out or something, you can say no to a C-section. But I think a lot of people don't realize, if you've got to that point where a doctor or somebody's come and saying, we have to do a C-section, like, here, sign this so we can go get you the proper care, that means something is going on with you or your baby that is life-threatening. And I hate that people think that that's like, no, they're just forcing me into, like, no, they're not. They're not just doing it because they want to take you over and do, it's a lot of prep. There's a lot of stuff that they have to do.
I
Like,
find that
yeah.
when I actually have an informed consent conversation with somebody and don't say, you must sign this, which I never do, they think for about 30 seconds and then they sign it. Because if I go, okay, so you look at this monitor, you see those decelerations that are now not coming back up. It's pretty dangerous when your baby doesn't get oxygen to its brain because it only has 60 heartbeat. So if we don't get the baby out of there within the next 10 minutes, that can damage your baby's brain. Most people don't go, let me ponder that for a few more minutes, about damaging the baby's brain. If you give them that information and what they're looking at, even though they don't know how to read a monitor or anything, you show them something, you tell them something, they're going to sign it if it looks like what you're saying has some basis in reality, and they've already been going through whatever they've been going through with their labor. So it's not like anybody ever comes in and goes, we're going to do a C-section. We don't do that. It's like, okay, it looks like this is the next step, because maybe it's not fetal distress. Maybe you've been 4 hours at 8 centimeters and nothing's happening. Like, you can continue to wait. Baby seems okay if you want to wait, but in my best judgment, you're going to end up with a C-section in another 2 hours. So up to you. And then that person says, well, they told me I needed a C-section. No, I did not. I document my conversation with them. If you want to keep waiting around, maybe you'll fool me. Maybe in 2 hours you will be 10 centimeters dilated. But looking at what's going on, position of the baby, my 30 years of experience, I don't think it's going to happen. I may be wrong, but if you want to keep going, let's keep going. For me, most patients do in the end ask me, what do you think? And I go, I can't make your decision for you, but here's what I think is going to happen. Like, just like the one with the forceps, after pushing for 4 hours, I said, we could just section you. We could be done right now. I said, or let's go to the OR. We actually did this thing called a double setup, where you enter the OR and they do the delivery on the OR table, just in case it doesn't work. You go right to a C-section. And she was like, if you think I can get this baby out vaginally, I want to at least give it a try. Okay. So, you make that decision, sign the consent, say it in the presence of other people that says, okay, here's the risks that could happen with forceps. She verbally gave consent. Everybody was there to listen to that. And that goes in my note. And then you deliver however you need to. But that's not me saying, you need this, we have to do this. This is me still at the very end going, here are your choices. I definitely have people come in at the beginning of their pregnancy and say to me, what's your C-section rate? As if, I don't know, is that going to make them stay with me or not? I guess it was 50% or more, they would walk out or something, but obviously it's not.